My favorite player of all time is retiring after the season. And this is something I've never really had to experience, right? The closest thing I had to it was Derrick Rose, but there was like a 5-year period leading up to Derrick Rose that let you know that his time was about to come, that he was going to call it a career. I mean, hell, Derrick Rose had been great for basically over a decade. I had time to prep myself for his eventual retirement. And with Chris Paul is not necessarily the case. Now, obviously, Chris Paul has not been the greatest point guard in the league over the last couple seasons, but it was just 3 years ago where he made an All-NBA team. 3 years ago. And even just last year, he played all 82 games, which is something that is so admirable at the age of, 38, 39. But he's about to call it a career.
Know you are playing at a high level, that you're in the twilight of your NBA career.
Yeah.
So how much longer do you intend to play?
At the most a year.
At the most a year. And he said this a few weeks / a month before he signed back with the Clippers. And if you go through the Clippers like social media, I mean, it's basically all setting it up. It's like, this is our last hurrah with one of our guys, Chris Paul. And it really does hurt my heart, man. We made the video about Bron a couple days ago about how LeBron James has basically been in my life as an NBA fan as long as I've been a fan of basketball. Chris Paul was drafted in 2005, which is basically 2 years after I started watching hoops. So Chris Paul has been in my life for almost the same amount of time as LeBron James. I became a Chris Paul fan in 2008. It is 2025, y'all. I have watched this man make how many All-NBA teams? Let me make sure I get his resume right. I've watched this man make 12 All-Star games, 11 All-NBA appearances, 9 All-Defensive and he's about to call it quits. I just don't know how to feel, man. I just don't know how to feel. Like, this is his first workout since he signed with the Clippers. And come on, man, name a midi magician better than him at the size of 6'6'1". Come on, man, he do this. Your toes on the line right there, Chris. We can't, in no way we this late in your career and your toes still on the line. But just boom, shot after shot, and yeah, they cut it, but it don't matter. He still got a little bit oomph to him. The post right before that is this, where he's passing the ball to himself. This just means a lot to, I don't know, man. It's crazy because, I'm going to say it again, I'm almost 30. So the fact that I got these emotions for a basketball player that I've never met before is crazy, but like, this means something to me, man. It means something to me. I still ain't bought my jersey, though. That's one thing I got to do. They got baby jerseys? That's crazy. Imagine putting my daughter in a Chris Paul jersey when she'll never be able to watch live Chris Paul. Wow, she missed the entirety of Chris Paul's career, basically. But yeah, it's one of those moments where I just wanted to take a second to reflect on Chris Paul's career before we go into the last season. I will say the one game, as long as I am in town, when they are here in Chicago, I am going to watch my boy play. I think I have some trips to Los Angeles this season. So as long as I'm in Los Angeles and the Clippers play, I will pull up because I need to, just experience the last hurrah for Chris Paul, because when Kobe was doing his farewell tour, and Chris Paul's not getting a farewell tour, which is still crazy to me. We're going to talk about that in a second. When Kobe was doing his farewell tour, I really, really wanted to go. I couldn't afford it. And I'm lucky enough to be in a position to be able to afford to go to NBA games now. And for my favorite player, I'm definitely going to go see his last time playing in the UC and all. Farewell tour. Farewell tours are something that has been exclusive to the greatest of the greats, which makes sense, right? If I'm the 9th man on the team, farewell tour, why the hell would we care? We've had farewell tours from like Julius Erving, from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, to Kobe, to Wade, to Duncan, to Dirk. Like, these are all guys that you consider to be, top whatever in the sport. But Chris Paul, there's a real gap between Kobe and Chris Paul, don't get me wrong. But Chris Paul is not that far away from those other guys that I mentioned. Obviously, he don't got the postseason success. Pretty much everybody that I named there has raised the Larry O'Brien trophy. Almost everybody I mentioned there has raised the Larry O'Brien trophy. And one thing that those guys have that Chris Paul does not have is pretty much overall love from the NBA as a whole. Chris Paul has always been a polarizing player, from the lack of postseason success, which I will always refute. Just because you don't got a championship don't mean you don't got postseason success. But the lack of postseason success, from him being known as a snitch or him being known as a dirty player or whatever it may be, the overall talking points or the belief about Chris Paul has him in the tier of player that he is so much better than. There's nothing that grinds my gears more than the one time every offseason where people on Twitter are asking, who would you rather have, Rajon Rondo or Chris Paul? That is the most asinine basketball conversation that exists. That exists. And this is not a shot at Rondo. I got so much love for Rondo, but this is a whole different level of basketball player. And again, I don't want this to come off as anti-Rondo because Rondo is one of my favorite players to watch growing up. There's no final that I cherish. Well, I guess the 2008 NBA Finals is maybe top 10 finals winners of my life, like that I was like wanted to see happen. So this is not against Rondo by any means, but he has no business being in a Chris Paul conversation, you know? And I'm getting away from Rondo. Again, I want to focus on Chris Paul himself. The Chris Paul effect is real, right? I know the last year Spurs didn't have the same effect as some of these other teams, but before he got to the Hornets, they won. How do I interpret this? Hold on. They had a win percentage of 22. Damn. He gets there. It jumps to 46.3. Before the Clippers trade, a 39. The Clippers were one of the laughing stocks in all of basketball. Chris Paul got there and it's like, oh man, this team is fun. This team is interesting. 60.6. The Rockets were already good with James Harden. With Chris Paul, they got even better. Remember the Thunders? Where the year that he was with the Thunder, they had a 0.2% chance to make the postseason. And they made it, bro. They made the playoffs. And was with one Lou Dort shot away from being in the second round? Like, that's real, bro. The Suns had a little bit of momentum because they went to the bubble and went undefeated. But the Suns were another laughing stock in basketball. They made the finals. They went from a non-playoff team to a finals team like that. And the Warriors won. He get a little bit of a bump, but we're not really going to give Chris Paul that much credit. He's coming off the bench then. And then the Spurs won. I don't even know what the Spurs win percentage was, but it was better. It wasn't big leaps, but it was better. So, like, this has been a guy that has been, we talk about James Harden being an all-time floor raiser. I think Chris Paul, he's not to the James Harden level of floor raiser, but he is also an all-time floor raising guard. I mean, yeah, if you want to talk about the last couple seasons, that changed a little bit because the motherfucker 35 plus, but the prime version of Chris Paul was a show, was amazing. And people always ask, how did he become my favorite player? When I'm watching, this is back in the day when a brother had hoop dreams and recognizing that my pops was 5'11" or whatever, and my mom was 5'1". I ain't really have that much of a chance to be a 6'7" demigod. So I look for smaller players across basketball, and there was no smaller player in the history of this sport that is as impactful on both sides of the floor than Chris Paul. That was a 9 all-defensive team. That wasn't like legacy all-defensive teams. He was really like that. Don't you dare post up and turn your back to Chris Paul because he was getting that ball out of your hands. Don't you dare try to play 2 steps ahead where Chris Paul is playing help side because he's going to read it all. He's one of the true floor generals and one of the smartest minds we've ever seen in this sport. But because, again, he never really had the super postseason success, he has zero CP0 is what they were calling them. He's got 0 rings. He's had a few moments in the postseason where, you know, he had the turnover against OKC that changed the entire series. Because of all of that, he doesn't get talked about in the same light as people that he truly, genuinely is around. There's a genuine conversation that Chris Paul is one of the top 5 point guards to ever play this sport. He's not recognized as such. And I don't want to let it bother me too much because at the end of the day, I have a level of admiration for Chris Paul and that's all that really matters. But I wish that this legendary player was going out with the fans recognizing that they're losing a legendary player. When Chris Paul was with the Rockets, I watched a player, and Chris Paul, who again, I've watched so much over the last decade of his career, shift his game to fit alongside James Harden and fit the system that was the Houston Rockets. Chris Paul turned himself to one of the best isolation scorers in all of basketball. And at that moment in time, he's with the Rockets. I thought that, yeah, he was going to have a really good career. He's 32 years old at this point, that he was still going to have multiple years left in the tank. But like the days of him being an all-NBA player are probably behind him. And that was completely okay because at the age of 32, you know, some of the other guards that were in his conversation back in 2008 were out of the league by 32. So the fact that not only he was still in the league, but really contributing and being a starter was enough for me. But for him to go to OKC, I think out of all of the series or seasons that Chris Paul has had where he finished top 2 in MVP, finished top 3 in MVP, did that multiple times in his career, there's no season that I admire more than that 2019-2020 season because, again, 0.2 chance to make the postseason. And it felt like that last year in Houston, that not that it was over for Chris Paul, but his efficiency had fallen off a cliff and everything, that you know, the times of him being Chris Paul was over. He made an All-NBA team, not just that year at the age of 34, but the year after at the age of 35, and the year after at the age of 36. There's a 36-year-old point guard making All-NBA. And I'm trying to figure out, at the age of 36, that has him tied ninth as the oldest player to ever make All-NBA. But that don't really count because LeBron did it 4 times. The last 4 years of LeBron. So LeBron counts as one. Anyway, Tim Duncan did it at 38. Kareem did it at 38. LeBron did it at 37. Carmelo did it at 37. Kareem did it at 37. Steph Curry, Chris Paul, LeBron, Tim Duncan, Shaq, Carmelo, and Hakeem all did it at 36 years old. Those other guys, other than like Carmelo, are widely considered top 10 players of all time. Steph Curry, LeBron James, Tim Duncan, Shaq, and Hakeem. Chris Paul is there with them in this because this one season where he made All-NBA. That's crazy. Come on, man. Really GOAT shit. I'm gonna, man, bro. Man. And a lot of the greatest Chris Paul moments aren't in full HD, right? You do get the moments where it's him versus Nash. That time was fun. You know, some postseason matchups against some really good teams. That was fun. But because it's not fully HD, I don't know if people will ever go back in 20 years and be like, let's see what this Chris Paul fella was like in 2009. 2009, he would have been All-NBA team as well, but he got injured that season. I wonder if this is still true. A couple years back, and it might have changed now because, again, he played when he was 38 years old. There's only a few players in NBA history, and I wonder if Chris Paul still fits this, that has never, his team has never lost the minutes when he was on the court. Let me double check to see if that's still true. It is still true at the age of 39 that there's never been a season where a Chris Paul team was worse with him on. You're like, Kenny, of course. That's not the case for a lot of legendary players, y'all. That's not like, there's sometimes a season where things just don't break your way, right? I think that LeBron is a perfect example of this. Let me give the stats for this one. Yeah, last year, the Lakers were worse with LeBron James on the floor. They just were. That don't mean he was awful. Some of that is luck. Some of that is lack of luck when it comes to opposing three-point shooting, where they were a lot higher when LeBron James on the floor versus not. So, like, some of it is luck-based. But to have a 20-year career and your team is never, not even just by a little bit, never lost the minutes where you're on the court, is crazy. And there have been seasons, like his last year in Houston, where the team was worse offensively with him on the court, but the defense was still so elite that it was straight up positive because the defense was so much better with him on the court. And I just always remember, if there's one moment in time, if I could just change one moment in his career, I would make it so that in 2018, he doesn't have that hamstring. That's the year where the Rockets famously missed 27 straight threes. Chris Paul's not on the team at that point because he's injured. I don't know, man. I'll probably make a video similar to this when it's all said and done for Chris. Hopefully this season goes very well for him. He has a healthy year. He played all 82 games last season. Super hard to do when you're 38 years old. Or, I'm sorry, 39 years old. But Chris Paul just did it. Obviously, his load is going to be a lot less with this Clippers team, which I think could be great for him. Did y'all know that until he ended up with the Warriors last season, that Chris Paul has started every single game of his NBA career? There wasn't one time where he came off the bench until just last season. It's going to be coming off the bench again for this Clippers team. Let me stop.